Today we are moving to study section 4. Last time we discussed study section 3, basically the demand. Today we'll be moving to the supply aspect of it. Supply relates directly with firm. As we know, firms operate independently of each other, making decisions about what to sell and how much to sell depending on the price. Firms try to maximize their utility when making selling decisions. And as a result, sellers derive utility from profits they make. In this study section, we are going to learn the meaning of supply, the law of supply, the rationale for the law of supply. We also highlight the factors affecting the supply of a commodity. We also look at the movement along and shift in supply curve. And we also state the types of supply. Meaning of supply. Supply implies the quantity of that commodity which producers are able and willing to offer for sales at each alternative prices during some specified period of time. The amount of goods offered for sales in the market at a given price. Then the market supply implies the total amount of goods supplied at various prices by all producers in the market. Supply schedules represent the relation between prices and the quantities of goods supplied, while supply curve is the graphical representation of the supply schedule. Looking at the supply schedule, table 1, there are 4 columns. We have the first column represents price, the second column represents firm A, the third column represents firm B, while the fourth column represents firm C, which implies that there are 3 firms in the market. When the price of goods, the market price is 10 naira, firm A produces 60 units, firm B produces 25 units, while firm C produces 80 units. When the price reduces to 6 naira, firm A produces 20 units, firm B produces 21 units, firm C produces 40 units. We now realize that as the market price increases, the quantity offered for sales by different firms reduces. And this implies that the higher the price, the higher the quantity offered for sales, while the lower the price, the lower the quantity offered for sales. And this supply schedule is represented in graph. And the graph that shows the relationship between price and quantity offered for sales is known as supply curve. The supply curve is upward sloping from left to right, as shown in the figure above. The law of supply states that when price of a commodity rises, the quantity supply increases, and when the price falls, the quantity supplied also falls. Ceteris paribus. What are the assumptions of this law of supply? 1. Price of the related goods should remain unchanged. Prices of factors of production, level of technology should remain unchanged. government policy regarding taxation should remain unchanged. Goals of the firm should also remain unchanged. Rationale for the law of supply. There are two rationales for the law. There are two rationales for the law of supply. One, the law of increasing costs. It becomes increasingly costly to produce equal increase in output of any goods or services. Two, profit maximizing motive. Every firm in the market produces in order to maximize profits. The supply function. Supply function is a function that represents or that shows a mathematical relationship between quantity supply and determinant of supply. The equation 1 shows that the quantity supply is a function of price of goods, price of a production substitutes, price of inputs, and other variables affecting supply. That is, Q subscript S is a quantity supply, P subscript S is the price of good S, P subscript R is a price of a production substitute, W is a price of inputs, that is wages. H represents other variables affecting supply. Factors affecting the supply of a commodity includes price of product, technology, price of factors, prices of other products, future price expectations. This can further be learned from the study material. Movement along the supply curve. A movement along the supply curve indicates changes in quantities offered as a result of change in the price. Shift in supply curve occurs when supply changes, not due to changes in the price of the product, but due to other factors. Such factors are change in technology, changes in the price of related commodities, changes in the price of inputs. This graph represents movement along the supply curve. The movement along the supply curve can either be extensions along the supply curve or contraction along the supply curve. The red arrow represents extension along the supply curve, while the blue arrow represents contraction along the supply curve. And all this is as a result of changes in the price of goods and services. If the price increases from 16 naira to 22 naira, we have extension along the supply curve. Then the quantity supplied will increase from 55 units to 75 units. When the price falls from 16 naira to 12 naira, it indicates contraction along the supply curve. And as a result, the quantity supply will reduce from 55 units to 40 units. Shift in supply curve. The shift in supply curve, the arrow head, the shift in supply curve, we have the initial supply curve is represented by Xs, while the outward shift in supply curve indicates increase in supply. And that shows an outward shift in supply curve, and that is it represented by X1, and it leads to increase in supply from 5 units to 6 units. while a decrease in supply shows an inward shift in supply curve from SS to S2 S2, and that leads to a decrease in quantity supplied from 5 units to 4 units as shown in the figure 2. Types of supply. There are 3 basic types of supply. We have joint supply, we have competitive supply, we have composite supply. Thanks for listening. We meet in the next study sections.